Willits is our town. Always has been, and always will be. Like any other town, it changes just a little bit from time to time. So we're here to let you know some of the things that are going on in your town.
Hi there, I'm Shari Williams-Andrews, your host for This Week in Willits, where we always learn more about our town and its recent and upcoming events. This Week in Willits encourages participation from local video producers for content for the show. If you have an idea and you'd like to include it in one of our episodes at This Week in Willits, contact us to find out how to participate. Call us at 459-2528, email us at wctvinc@gmail.com, or check out our Facebook page, facebook.com, Willits Community Television, Inc., for opening hours, links to videos, information, and more. I have a question for you viewers. Where were you in 1972? Of course, I wasn't born. Okay, I was around, but I was probably in Michigan. But if you happened to be in Willits at that time, you might recall that that was the year that the Mendocino County Museum first opened its doors on East Commercial Street. In this episode, we take a look at the museum's 40th anniversary celebration that took place in the summer of 2012. And remember, if you want to find out more about Mendocino's past, groove on down to the museum's location on East Commercial Street, just next door to the Willits Public Library. You'll be glad you did.
When I walk these halls, full of stories of those who endured, how quickly might I have fallen down, would my failure have been assured? Could I have lived on a fog-bound ridge with only the stars and a fire, the foundation for the families they bore, the generations that lead to today? They show that we might someday be the ones who are on display.
Welcome to the 40th anniversary Chautauqua show and dinner for the Mendocino County Museum. It's wonderful to see all of you here, friends of long standing and friends who are new standing. In the old days, when travel was lengthy and arduous, people did not take seeing their friends for granted. Absences were long and uncertain. Journeys were major undertakings. They were for the hardy and the adventurous. People didn't always know if they would make it to their destination. There were many times over the years, and even recently, when it has been tough going, and the museum wasn't sure it was going to make it. And yet we're nothing if not hardy and adventurous. When it counts, we take the journey and we all show up. That's Mendocino County for you. We all came here for a reason, from the earliest hikers over the Bering Strait, looking for a place to settle for generations, forever, to the hitchhikers of the 20th century, looking to go back to the land. Builders from San Francisco looking for trees. Ranchers looking for land for their herds. Immigrants looking for reminders of homelands to plant grapes and hops. And the urban transplants and retirees looking for places to settle. We've come full circle. We're all here, and we make this Mendocino. The Mendocino County Museum is here to capture what makes Mendocino, what makes this place unique, who's here, the challenges, and the promises. 40 years ago, the promise was to create a place that would harbor the physical and paper evidence of Mendocino County history, and to make it available to all who live here and all who visit here. And that's still our commitment. Today's commitment is to celebrate our friends, our accomplishments, and set our sights on the future, on the next 40 years. And we'll do that by sharing the talents of local folks, many of whom have been part of the museum's family for a while, by eating wonderful food together, and by not having long speeches. So, I want to specifically identify the members of the Mendocino County Museum Board of Trustees, otherwise known as the Board of Supervisors. And we have here John McCowan, the chair of the Board of Supervisors and Trustees. And somewhere we have Dan Hamburg, over there, district member and trustee. As for the program, it has been challenging to capture the diversity and depth of Mendocino County talent. Over the weeks of planning, the participants morphed and changed. Some of our earliest participants had paying engagements that came up and they had to bow out, and today's event didn't work for the Native American performances that were scheduled, which is disappointing news, but will inform our plans for opening this fall of a new ongoing Native American culture exhibit, which is being guest curated by Vicki Patterson, who is right here. Thank you very much for showing up to celebrate with us.
It's great to be here. Nice to see lots of friends. Mostly the theme I chose today is things about living and working in a fairly rural area of Mendocino County. We live out in Talmadge, not far from the Russian River, and I have a couple of odes to a couple of my favorite tools. This is Ode to My Bow Saw. Soft shape, sharp teeth, half moon, queen of my tool shed, bow saw, I love you. I admit it wasn't love at first sight. In my younger days, using two small bow saws, reward never equaled effort. But then I discovered the perfect size, 30-inch blade, crafted to my capability, designed for my desires. And ever since, I have been in bow saw heaven. Our dog Scout sees me pick up the bow saw. She's as happy as I am. We're heading for the woods, a cool October day, after wayward branches of oak, ones that hang too low, ones that have died out, ours for the taking. Bow saw goes to work. Time ceases to exist. We see what we can saw. We saw what we see sawable. Yes, we're having fun. Useful, practical fun which contributes to the health and economy of the household. Bow saw, I thank you for all that you enable. Ambidextrous tool. There's no reason not to use and keep on using you. And I don't want to forget to mention how wonderfully quiet you are. Unlike those admittedly useful but obnoxiously loud chainsaws, you do your work quietly, efficiently, accurately, in a graceful, unassuming, timely manner, always without complaint. Please let me know if there's ever anything I can do for you. This is Ode to My Branch Loppers. They come ready to my hand like a ball bat or tennis racket. Useful, overlooked, underrated tool, branch loppers. Coupled with a bow saw or chainsaw, they enable many things. Downed wood, limbs and branches ignored by others as too troublesome, to me become fuel for wood stove. Branch loppers in one hand, bow saw in the other, back along the Russian River, mid-November, my old beat and valuable green and white side step slide door 1969 VW van nearby, I more than happily take over someone else's abandoned brush pile. Oak, pine, madrone, cedar, and alder. No discriminator. My branch loppers accept it all. Lop, lop, lop it clean. For bow saw to turn into transportable lengths. I breathe deep. A hawk is flying. The river flows so far below flood stage now, it's hard to believe what it can sometimes do. The next day, I go up a nearby hillside after manzanita. Manzanita tends to die out for some reason. I don't know why. A botanist or a forester could explain it, perhaps, or a Google search. All I know is some stays alive and healthy, while others dies, becomes brittle, breaks off, uproots. My bow saw and branch loppers work on the gnarly dead manzanita. I love the texture and color of it, smooth maroon turning to rough black. Over the hillside, the sawed branches go, as close to the van as I can toss them. I do more lopping and sawing on the flat and carry a good load back. That very night, by the airtight wood stove, watching through the glass, warmed by wine, wood fire, friendship, I give thanks, propose a toast. Here's to you, branch loppers, purchased at Ace Hardware for less than $30. Sharp, well made, useful, long may you lop.
So I was thinking when Allison first started talking, I was thinking they should set aside an exhibit just for me. Because really, I was born to a house on West Stanley Street in Ukiah, and I'm retired now, and I still live in the same house, so I think I'm a Mendocino County icon or something. Anyway, museums are very important things, and if and you know, whatever it takes to keep them going, I think is worth the price, and that's the title of this first song. This is called "Worth the Price." Blackberry brambles grow deep and thick, a midsummer treasure hard to resist. The tangled blossoms beckon with a fruit so sweet, its thorns will scar you, make you bleed, 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 make you bleed. The majesty of a mountaintop can call your name. Scaling to that rocky peak, you're never quite the same. There's an awesome panorama for the eyes to see, but if you get caught by the thunderstorm, it'll cut you to your knees. Knees, knees, to your knees now. I know, I can see, there ain't no easy way. No joy comes for free, but it's worth the price you pay. Yeah, yeah. The lonely heart will listen to the siren song, with nights of surrender in the dark till dawn. But love's harsh retreat in the morning light can leave you lost and lonely and hurt your pride. Pride, pride, hurt your pride. With the fear of flying stops you cold, you got doubt creeping in your mind. Take that chance, leap that faith, it's worth it every time. I've been scarred and bleeding from the thorns, and I've been cut down to my knees by the thunderstorm, and I have felt the lonely and the sirens refrain, but I pick myself up again. You gotta love the rain, rain, rain. Love the rain now. I know, I can see, there ain't no easy way. No joy comes for free, but it's worth the price. It's worth the price. It's worth the price you pay. Yeah, yeah.
Why on earth, of all the places in the world we could be, why are we here? That's a question I've been asking myself since 1973. And all of a sudden it dawned on me that I had my own juxtaposed universe, my own hidden connection that I had forgotten all about. that was obviously pulling me to this place. This is what I wrote. I'm 11 years old, standing in front of a glass case at the Field Museum of Natural History in Chicago. I'm on a school trip, but I've been here before, lots of times, with my family. The museum is huge and filled with amazing things like dinosaur bones and Egyptian mummies and tiny dead African deer called dik-diks. But I always end up at this case, drawn like a magnet, listening hard. Inside are baskets, giant ones, tiny ones, baskets with feathers and shells and designs that tell stories. Baskets woven so tightly they can hold water. They can be cooked in. Who could make something so fantastic out of reeds and roots and grasses? The sign says, Homo Indians of Northern California. Years later, I moved to California to study theater, but drop out when I can't imagine living in New York or LA, the only paths presented by our earnest little drama department. I work in a natural food store in Laguna Beach, in charge of the herbs. I read Mother Earth news, fasting for days at a time, and see in a vision that I must go back to the land. I'm famished for land. My partner and I head for Maine, but a friend calls on the phone with an offer, and we buy, sight unseen, a chunk of Greenfield Ranch outside Ukiah? I moved there on Easter Day, 1973, live in a teepee, write articles for the Greenfield newsletter under the name Mung Bean, fill our newly built cabin with 50-pound bags of wheat berries, and realize I can't live here. I eventually moved down into Ukiah to make plays. In 1978, I'm in the attic of the Sun House on Main Street, before the museum is built, unpacking trunks and boxes that hold the lives of Helen and A.O. Carpenter and their daughter Grace and her husband John Hudson, who, it turns out, studied the Pomo Indians of Northern California, of this place especially, and sent their baskets to the Field Museum in Chicago, where years later I heard them calling and followed them home. And found when I got here that unlike the dinosaurs and mummies and dik-diks, the Pomo Indians of Northern California, of this place especially, are still alive, very much alive.
Those people who live in Ukiah will get this one pretty well. I woke up in a small haze, just another scorching late dog day. I've been melting in this heat, and they say it's gonna be 103 degrees. But I know a place where the air is cool. Big blue water meets the tidal pool. Sand feels soothing on your feet, and the hot summer sun safely out of reach. Yeah, I'm gonna get myself relief. I'm gonna smell the sweet salt breeze, see the waves crashing, hear that sound. I wanna be coastward bound. Take that ribbon of two-lane road, over the hill through the redwood grove, past the rhododendron and pygmy trees, to the great wide ocean waiting there for me. Driving north on the coast highway, fog's burning off, it's a clear, cool day. Gonna take me a walk down 10 Mile Beach, all the way to McCarricker. I heard they lost some trees. Yeah, I'm gonna get myself relief. I'm gonna smell the sweet salt breeze, see the waves crashing, hear that sound. I wanna be coastward bound. I've been melting in this valley heat, and they say it's gonna be 103 degrees, 105 degrees, 110 degrees. That's too hot for me.
And the archaeologist, who's based on Tom Layton, stands up and says, in 1984, we were working on Three Chop Bridge between Willits and Fort Bragg. I remember it was a Friday. The day was sweaty hot, and the forest mosquitoes were terrible. As the archaeologist in charge of the summer's fieldwork, I'd hoped that this dig would give me information about northern Pomo culture just before white settlers arrived. In Northwest California, the objects we find during an excavation are likely to include obsidian or chert flakes, milling stones or pestles, a projectile point, shell beads, sometimes the remains of a packed earth house floor or a rock-lined fire pit. In Northwest California, the site on Three Chop Ridge had looked good at first. A number of shallow depressions about 8 to 15 feet across, which were the last remains of the brush and redwood bark houses of a Meetam Pomo village. Meetam means water splashing the toes, and it's the name of the native people of the Willits area. The word Tomkai Road, comes from the northern Pomo words Meetam Kai. Kai means valley. But it had been a perplexing week of excavation. For days, as my students sifted the soil through 1/8-inch screens, they kept finding fragments of broken ceramics and green bottle glass. We wondered, had the Pomo at this site already experienced contact with the white settlers? Or, more likely, had loggers dumped their trash here? And then all at once, we got real lucky. Two things happened almost simultaneously. First, one of my grad students brought me a thumbnail-sized fragment of that green bottle glass, unmistakably worked into an arrowhead. Second, a Jackson State Forest Ranger visiting the site said, "You know, Tom, these pieces of pottery look just like the ones my buddy gets when he dives an old Chinese sampan sunk in the cove off Casper." And then a Pomo Indian woman says to the archaeologist, "Do you realize what you hold in your hand? Can you feel the thousands of years you hold in the chips you find? The echoing shadow of the hands that shaped them, that worked those pieces, that placed those points? Can you feel their power?" The archaeologist need not dig us up to observe and thus preserve us, categorize us, catalog and mythologize us. We have our own names and our own myths. Do you know my name? What you call artifacts are in fact the shapes of my life parts, of the broken willow worn by water, part of the weave of who I am. And here Captain Faucon picks up that piece of pottery and says, "I recognize this pottery. It was part of my cargo on a ship I captained from Canton, China to San Francisco in the summer of 1850. Cheaply made bowls and saucers for the miners in the gold fields of the Sierra, which we hoped to sell at a good profit." And then a Chinese potter takes that shard and says, "I could have made this bowl, what once was a bowl. I made thousands of these bowls in my life in the province of Canton, in China, during the reign of Emperor Daguang. Our porcelain has been very popular with people from other countries. Everyone wants to have dishes made of China. This bowl is made of the earth of China. First, Chinese hands dug the clay of China. After the clay was pounded, soaked, and kneaded, the bowls were turned. A man pulled on a rope to turn the pottery wheel. The turned bowls were lined up to dry and then painted with cobalt from the western mountains. I remember on summer days the sun burned orange through the smoke of 100 kilns, and on opening them, the cobalt paint glistened china blue. The bowls were nested in stacks of 30, with Pearl River mud placed between each piece to protect them on their journey. Each stack was padded with old matting and wrapped in a wicker of split bamboo. Because they were so heavy, these rolls were loaded deep in the hold of the vessel. And then this bowl sailed across the ocean, over distance, over time. And here, a wreck diver takes that piece of pottery and says, "The first time my brother and I dove for the wreck in a cove near Casper in 1981, we saw pieces of this pottery scattered all over the ocean floor. It was almost like following a trail of breadcrumbs someone had left to bring us into the site. By following the pottery, we were able to hone right in over the main wreckage, where we saw literally hundreds of pieces of broken saucers and bowls, littering the bottom. And then we saw the main ballast pile, and there was no way you could mistake that iron ballast for anything else. We knew the site had been heavily dove by the Southern California wreck divers since the 1970s, and that they'd discovered a lot of artifacts. They said it was a ship from the gold rush period, and it had cannons and cannonballs. They'd found some Spanish dollars, which were the universal trade coin during the gold rush, and a few gold buttons and some fragments of gold filigree jewelry. The gold was what caught our interest. And even though those fellows may have picked over the wreck, my brother and I had the impression that no one was as thorough as we were. So we came back to dive a number of times during the next year and were quite impressed with the items that were still there, like the vertical capstan in the bow area and the congealed mound of anchor chain. We found tall green glass ale bottles and checkers and a carved crystal stamp for sealing envelopes with wax and a gold filigree dragon's head. We even found a part of a leather shoe protruding from a mass of concreted iron oxide. When we asked the locals at the Casper Inn to tell us what they knew about the ship, they just called it the pottery wreck. Nobody who dived it had recovered a bell with a name or anything else that could positively identify the vessel. That was a lot of misinformation. I started doing research to find out what the name of that ship really was. And here the archaeologist comes back and says, "I met a wreck diver who told me about an old article he'd found in the first newspaper in California, the Daily Alta California, and it was dated August 5th, 1850. The article read, 'Shipwreck and loss of life. The brig, Frolic of Boston, from China, the 16th of June, was totally lost on a reef about 60 miles above Fort Ross on the night of the 26th of July. The article goes on to say that the brig had been outbound for San Francisco with a valuable cargo of Chinese goods.
When I walk these halls, full of stories of those who endure, how quickly might I have fallen down, would my failure have been.
That was our latest episode of This Week in Willits. The individual segments of this program were produced by local filmmakers. You don't have to be a film pro to contribute to This Week in Willits. Contact us with your ideas and find out how you or your organization could be a part of our next program. I'm Shari. Goodbye until next time.
So that's about it for now. Things are happening in Willits, as they always are, and things are changing, as they always do. Yet it's still the same familiar hometown we've all come to know and appreciate for what it is. We'd like to know what's happening with you, with your families, and the organizations which would not exist without your efforts and support. So give us a call at 459-2528 and let us know what's going on with you. Maybe you'll be a part of our next story. Keep tuned and join us next time to see what's happening this week in Willits.